You are watching the Deadfoot Diver Podcast with Kurt, the Deadfoot Diver.
Diver Podcast, where we talk about everything scuba diving, tech diving, and also the benefits of diving with disabilities. Today, my guest, I am pleased to have on Nick Hogle, the host of the Offgassing podcast. How's it going, Nick?
It's going good, man. Thank you for inviting me onto the podcast. It's nice. Usually I'm on the other side. I'm in your chair, so it's nice to be on the other side from time to time to just talk about diving.
Your podcast was actually one of the first ones I actually started listening to when I got back into diving again this year that I just happened to stumble across.
That's awesome. I love hearing that. Yeah, no, it's cool. It's great when I get to hear people and they're enjoying it, and I'm glad it's getting out there.
I love Monday mornings because I got like 4 hours of diving podcasts I get to listen to when I'm working for the first half of my shift.
That's awesome. I need to catch up on some other podcasts. I hate to say I'm pretty bad about listening. I've been listening to more podcasts. I actually started listening to some history podcasts, which is kind of funny because I was like just scrolling around. I was like, oh, what other podcasts are there out there? And there's some good ones. There's some really good ones. I'll have to share them with you.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure, man. So how did you first get into scuba diving anyways?
Ah, well, that's a great story. No. I think it might be kind of typical in the sense that I know a lot of people from the stories that I've heard. It seems like a lot of people will start diving in Thailand, and that's kind of where my journey began. Was I was backpacking through Thailand, and just a little pre-story. So I'm half Thai. My mother grew up there. We used to go. I actually went to school there when I was younger, and when I was, I don't know, like early 30s, my mom hadn't been back in like 15 years. I hadn't been back in a very long time, so she was like, "Hey, I'm gonna take this trip out there. Do you want to go?" I was like, "Yeah, that sounds great. Like this would be fun. Just hanging out with my mother in her home country essentially." And so we went back there. As soon as I landed, I was like, man, this is awesome. Like the smells, the scenery, everything brought me back to when I was a childhood. And I told her, I was like, hey, I'm gonna come back out here next year and just backpack around, just be a bum around Thailand for like a month basically. And so fast forward, did the backpacking trip, and I was on this island called Koh Phi Phi, and it's pretty famous out there for backpackers and even scuba divers. And I just strolled into a dive shop and basically was like, what's this going on? What's going on here? And yeah, it changed my life, man. It was such an amazing experience. I remember we went into the pool, did like a quick 15, 20 minute. I can't remember, everything. I just, the memories, they with my old age, they seem to fade. But yeah, we went into the pool. We did a few skills to make sure I was good to go. And it was a Discover Scuba Dive. And I remember it was pretty awesome. I remember the guide instructor saying, this is going to be a great day because it's just you and me. So it's almost like a private DSD. And we went out and it was absolutely life changing. I remember as soon as I got under, all I kept thinking about was the movie Avatar. Like that's all I kept thinking about when I was in the water. And funny enough, when we came up and was hanging out with him and the other guides, instructors afterwards, I was telling him, I'm like, man, this is something I'm going to pursue. This is something I'm going to do. And it's just funny, years later, here I am talking to you, and then even started a podcast. It's just, it really consumed my life, those few first breaths that I took underwater.
Yeah, like most of us, like me, when I got back into diving again this year again, it was just like boom instantly. So, and it's just like snowballed from there. So
Yeah, yeah. So what prompted the break for you?
the break from me, basically back in the 90s, I was diving, working at a shop. Um, and then the shop went under. and it was really hard in Ontario at the time to like get a job and stuff like that. And then due to peer pressure from some family members and stuff, I stupidly gave it up. So,
Yeah.
and I mean, I did a lot of cool things afterwards, but that I don't regret doing, but like nothing in my life, just like you with diving, nothing's ever been anywhere close to the equivalent of it.
Yeah.
So,
No, it really does capture the heart fairly quickly. And but the thing is, it's kind of nice because I've had a chance to speak to people about their second first breath, right? And that's always an amazing experience, right? Just because to find that passion, to find that love again, it's almost just like meeting up with a great old friend that you hadn't seen in so many years.
yeah. Yeah, as soon as I took my first breath again, I was like, "Oh my god, I'm hooked." Uh, I went I remember going in the pool and going down, and the instructor wanted me to do a partial mask clear, and I like, partial mask clear, and I just did full mask clear, right? A bunch of them, we go swimming around, and he's like, "How long has it been since you dove again?" I said, "98 about." He's like, "You wanna go dive
Oh,
this afternoon?" I'm like, "I gotta leave tomorrow."
it's like it's like riding a bike, right? You and a little. I'm sure there was nerves going into it, but as soon as you hit the water, you're like, "This
Oh,
is
yeah.
what I've been missing this whole time." So that's awesome, man.
Yeah, man. So, like, how old were you when you first started then?
I came into the game definitely pretty late. I'm trying to think. It was 2016, so I was 33.
Wow.
33 or 34. No, wait a minute. Yeah. I was like I was pretty much in my early 30s. Yeah, I came into the game really late and I had a pretty good 20s. I can't complain. I definitely, it's not like I didn't find my career early on, so I was kind of just, it's been one passion after another. As soon as I turned 18, I pretty much moved to Colorado and, you know, fell down the ski bum route or snowboard bum. I wasn't much of a skier, although I did learn. But yeah, I did the mountain thing up until pretty much my pretty much early 30s. Like right when I turned 30, I moved, or no, I was early 30s. Got away from the mountain scene, moved to Texas, and then pretty soon after, kind of maybe within a few years, found the scuba diving thing, and then started pursuing that passion. Yeah, it's been not haven't lived the hardest life over here, so I can't complain. I haven't been stuck in an office like a lot of people, so
Count
I try
yourself
to enjoy.
lucky, dude.
There's definitely been some moments where I'm like, what am I doing? But I feel like at some point we all have those thoughts, right?
Well, I obviously, though, your girlfriend's with you, so she backs you up when you want it.
I feel like I'm slowly getting her away from the career life too. So it's yeah, it's been good. It's been good.
So does she dive too?
Yes, actually, so she just became certified in 2023. So I was about to say last year, but we're in 2025 now. Man, these years are flying by. Uh but yeah, so I was a diver when we met. I was pretty into it, and she had tried a few times. She did like a couple Discover scuba dives. She really wasn't into it. And then we for our 40th birthday, we spent some time in Bali. Funny story, we were like, okay, you only turn 40 once, so let's make it memorable. And so we rented out this villa. It was really really nice, private pool. It was like
Ah,
we went way too far.
big
But
buck.
we were like, yeah, we were like, let's go for it. Uh, so we rented this villa, and so it's funny. Her birthday is in February. My birthday is in April. So basically 2 months apart, and to the day actually. It's quite funny. Like literally 2 months to the day. Same year,
That
everything.
is fun.
And yeah, so we'll try to plan something in March. That way it's not like, okay, February we go and do something. wait a month, and then in the next month, April, we go and do something. So we try to plan something big, usually in March. So that's when we did it, and I was like, hey, I could go do some diving. Bali, you could do like the yoga thing, the self-help, not self-help, but like,
Yeah.
the yoga type stuff. And she was like, I don't know if I'll be really into that. And I was like, well, you should try to go do a scuba diving course. And so she found a really great shop, and she went there. I was actually taking a course too. Um, so she went there and got her scuba certification and absolutely fell in love with it, to the point where literally we landed back home. And I think by the end of the week after work one day, she's like, hey, I just booked us back to go back to Ahmed so I could do my advanced course. So I was like, she's got the bug. I was like, yes, it only took a few years, but she's into it now. So yeah, she's yeah, super huge diver now. So we try to plan trips at least every other month. We're trying to get out together, and then in between that, I'm trying to dive when possible. So
That's awesome that your girlfriend dives like that. My
yes,
my
it does
wife
become an
can't dive
expensive hobby.
anymore. Due
Oh,
to
okay.
she got COVID, and once she got COVID, now she's got asthma from it, unfortunately. So,
Oh, that's a bummer.
however, I am very lucky because I would not be doing any of this without her, and she's living through me vicariously, as she puts it. So,
Oh man, that's amazing that she supports you in continue diving. And yeah, hopefully, I mean, maybe at some point she'll be able to get back. Has she tried to get back in it at
I
all, or?
can't because she's on 3 puffers right now. So,
Oh,
it's
bummer, bummer.
full-blown asthma, so she's gotta wait until they manage to come up with some sort of way to clear that out. Like anything, like, a lot of people got messed up due to COVID, so
Yeah, yeah. No, it's new territory too, especially in a lot of different areas with COVID. But what I was gonna say is, so I've been seeing the technology. I know a friend tried it out with these new those the I can't the VR headsets. Like you could go out and do dives with
Oh,
VR
really?
headsets. People, yeah, it's kind of crazy. I know a friend told me they had like this display at Dima a few years back, like a couple years back, and he was telling me about it. And I was like, oh, that might be kind of a cool way to introduce people to diving, like famous dive sites. You put the VR headset on, you can
Oh,
go
I do
dive
that.
around. You can go check out some of these beautiful shipwrecks from the comfort of your own couch.
I'm sure that's not cheap either.
Yeah. Well, I swear these VR headsets are just. I swear there's so many of them coming out, and they have some. I don't know if you've tried them, but they're kind of cool. I mean, I know we're getting off of diving, but it's VR diving,
We're
right? So it's
diving.
kind of
We're
the same.
talking about diving, so it's still diving. We're talking about virtual
Yeah,
diving now.
it's a form of diving, right?
Exactly.
It's bringing diving to the everybody in the world, So and you could probably even get real crazy with it. Put the VR headset on, grab a tank and a regulator, and just start breathing.
I could see somebody doing that. I actually, believe me, I've been tempted to cut this off a couple of times in the last couple of weeks just to go dive. It felt better when I was diving in Jamaica and out of the cast.
It's yeah, it's pretty interesting. Technology is really moving forward, and it'll be interesting to see where it goes.
Yeah, hopefully, they bring the price of that type of stuff down because that would be actually a really good training tool. Like, would
Yeah.
you not think as an instructor, you go and you're doing a shipwreck? Hey, here you go. Let's do the dive in virtual reality first before you get in the water.
Oh yeah. No, there's I mean I know there's the two sides of, two parties when it comes to technology. And I'll be honest, I am a fan of technology and seeing how it can make, I don't want to say our lives easier, but I'm definitely a fan of seeing where it's going to go.
Yeah.
You know, I know some people aren't the biggest fan of when it comes to certain things, but I'm always excited to see what will happen and what will come of it. So,
So
what about you? Are you a fan of technology
I
in
actually
diving?
do IT for a living.
Okay.
That's my full job. So yeah. Whether I'm a fan of it at this point,
Yeah. Uh no, because with the technology, and this might generate some hate, but yeah, I switched to transmitters a while back, and I'm just a huge fan of it. I think it's a lot nicer, and yeah, it's definitely more expensive, but you know, diving it's our hobby, so we just dump money into it. Unfortunately, too much.
yeah, I know. Yeah, it gets way too easy. Oh, but this is only that much.
I my old boss used to tell me, this was non-diving related, but my old boss used to tell me, he's like, is it a want or a need? And I feel like everything in diving is a
Need.
need. It's not a want. It's like, I need that. Even though I have 4 already, I need that other one.
Yeah, because you dive rebreather and everything, right?
I just got into rebreathers this year, and it's something I I feel like with a lot of diving, it's as soon as you start progressing and going through, it's kind of like the natural, not the natural, but obviously the industry. You get out of open water, it's like, okay, what's next? You have that chart, what's next, and I think that's kind of a natural, even for most divers. If they don't plan on going to advanced open water, eventually they're going to start to get those thoughts, right? Like, okay,
Yeah.
I want more training. I want to see what else is out there. And to be honest, that's one of the things that I absolutely love about diving is, well, a lot of different things, but when you look at that chart, right? All the agencies have that chart. At the very bottom is the Discover, and then it goes to open water, and then you hit I can't remember exactly, but it's either advanced, but then there's a little side bracket, then it goes into all these different specialties. And there really is so many different avenues to go into diving. It's like, do you want to get into photography? Do you want to get into shipwrecks? Do you want to get into overhead? Do you want to get into this or that? And as you naturally progress and find your passion, you're like, oh, okay, I can really take this pretty far. And um, I just kind of found my way into rebreather diving. It's not necessarily something I thought would happen. My bank account wasn't very happy with me after. Um, but I just figured, why not? And I'm still very, very new. There's a lot that I have to learn, but I'm enjoying it, and I think that's one of the other aspects of diving too is like I really enjoy the learning process, and um, I you know I became an instructor a while back, and I was teaching for a little bit. I haven't taught actively in a while, but to be a student is such a joyful thing because I keep learning, and I keep chatting with people, and getting their tips, their tricks, and but yeah, yes, I became a rebreather diver. I keep saying this year, but last year in 2024 I became a rebreather diver. So it's still the beginning of the year. There's that transition period where we're going into the new year, and we still talk about it like it's last year. So
I I see the attraction to it in a lot of ways. I guess with rebreathers, what makes me nervous is the amount of planning and preparation everybody says you have to do on the units, like for 2, 3 days before you even do a dive, and all the checklists. And
yeah, and yeah. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
I have ADHD, so that worries me a bit.
Yeah, and I mean, I think it's kind of like the natural progression, though, right? Because when we all first started diving, it seemed like it was so much, right? The Before the even going into your open water course, you're like, what is all this equipment? What are all these things I have to remember? This is so much, and then like anything, it just becomes like not second nature, but you start to learn like, okay, I need to do this. And then it become, you build those habits. And, I would assume very much like IT, like if you were to show me your workspace, I'd be like mind blown. Like, I don't even know where to begin. I don't even want to touch anything because I feel like I'm just gonna melt down the whole system. And to you, it's probably just like, oh yeah, this is that, this is this, and so it's one of those things. And I'm hoping to develop those skills in the rebreather world, but time and unfortunately money. So we'll see how it goes.
What what I definitely see the benefits of it. Like I know that you had Greg Hilliard on your show, for instance. Greg, I interviewed Greg as well. I've known Greg from NASCAR. Actually, I worked with him. I was an official in NASCAR when he was in NASCAR. So I was listening to your show the whole time, and it was like, I know this voice, I know this name, and I couldn't figure out where. And then all of a sudden he mentioned NASCAR to me. Oh, okay. So you'll have to watch that episode because I pull a bit of a gag on him right off the start, everybody. So, and I think you're gonna get a good laugh out of, especially anybody who knows Greg Hilliard.
Oh, that's funny. That's funny. Yeah, he's been an awesome supporter of the show, and I was actually chatting with him. I think it was within the last couple weeks. Because yeah, he's definitely a wealth of information, and I was kind of picking his brain about a few things, and I hope at some point I get a chance to try out one of his scooters because I would assume anything coming from him is probably very well built.
I live an hour from his boat. So anytime you want to come over and go dive with me, man, let's go. I got a
Oh
place, I
man,
got a trailer you and your girlfriend can stay in, no problem.
I might need to I definitely will hit you up on that, and I'll have to prepare myself because when it comes to the cold, I'm a little baby. So but I need to do it. I need to get out there and try to get some dives in and check it out because the diving out there I hear is phenomenal. And it's actually funny. I was saying this to somebody a while back or the other day, how that area where you live is it's on my bucket list of places to go diving. And unless you're a diver and you've been diving for a little bit, you'd be like, why would you want to go there and dive? Like, people think of all the tropical blue beautiful scenic areas, and I'm like, no, the Great Lakes would be an amazing place to go diving. So one of these days I will make it out there. So
It's cold, but it's definitely the shipwrecks are like we have some amazing shipwrecks for sure. Um, the whole thing when I started diving again this year was I want to eventually get certified to about 220 because there's a lot of intact schooners that they've found in the Great Lakes just in the last 2 years alone. There's been like 4 or 5 of them. They're sitting perfectly intact on the bottom with the mast sticking up. Like
oh
they're just like, phew, and they're all in like, and there's a bunch of them that are all between like 150 and 180 feet.
oh yeah. And no, there's do you have a certain one that you want to go and try to see?
Oh, certain one I want to go see. There's a few of them actually. There's one that's around 160 in Lake Erie called the Steamship Atlantic. That one I want to go on to for a reason. It was actually found by Mike Fletcher from the Dive Detectives.
Oh, okay, okay.
Import off of Long Point in Lake Erie. And back in the 90s, I was actually diving when he found it and when the whole court case thing came up with it and all that stuff. And I actually did get to go out with him one day and we were going to do the dive and it got too rough and it got canned.
Oh,
So
man.
so that is one of my bucket list dives for here for sure is to go and do that one. Um
Uh,
and then there's trying to think there's several schooners that, yeah, I can't even think of the names of them, but there's about 4 or 5 schooners around here that those are the ones that are on the main list of me wanting to do deeper dives is and
Wow.
just because they're all intact, perfectly intact schooners with a mast sticking out,
Yeah.
which I've never dove
No.
on.
Yeah, no, there's some really, really cool stuff to see. And I don't know if you've reached out to Jeff Lindsay, but he is absolutely amazing at documenting and, just producing these pictures from that whole, just a lot of those shipwrecks. So it's every time I see, a few of his photos, I'm like, man, this is cool. I really got to make it out there. He's a phenomenal photographer. He's been on the show, and just yeah, some of the things that he's capturing and documenting out there just seem absolutely amazing. So I definitely it'll happen. I'll make it out there at some point.
Well, Greg, actually, I was talking to him the other night because I said I gave him a rec. I forget which one it was, and I said, okay, I want to do this type of rec, and here's and all this. So you're a technical charter boat captain. What certs am I going to need for it? And all that stuff, right? And what gases? And he's like, and I said, so he listed off the gases that I need for it and stuff. And I'm like, okay, how much is that going to run me roughly, right? And it would be like, what do you quote it at? Like $350 just for the gas to do the dive. And then another plus the charter boat and everything else, right? Well,
Yeah, yeah.
and then he gave me the price of how much it cost him on a rebreather. And it's like, oh, okay.
Yeah, no, and that's another positive side. I guess you have to weigh the compare depending on the you know compare how many times you would go out. If it's something that you're going to get into quite a bit, then yeah, rebreather is just the proper choice, right? In the long run, it will save you money, and there are more risks that come with it, yes, but I feel at the same time, if you're using it properly, it could be safer. And I know that sounds weird. It's more risky, but it's safer. But and then plus in the long run, yeah, it'll save you some money on gas depending on how many times you plan on going out there.
By his calculations, one dive, it would save me a lot of gas, a lot of gas. I was like, holy smokes. Okay, maybe at some point I need to rethink my plans here for between open circuit and rebreather.
Do you think that's something you'll go down?
I am not sure because my wife basically because of who I'm getting to train with since I'm training with Hubert Kretchen and he's the best adaptive instructor in the world. Um she has basically said I'm allowed to do any type of training I want under him except for rebreather.
I mean, that's not, it's yeah, it's not a bad thing, I guess, at the end of the day.
No, I mean, and I see her point too, because she reads all the fatality stuff and, she's a diver, so she's into it, right? I mean, she knows what she's
Yeah.
talking about. Now, you also do a lot of side mount diving, right?
I do. I really enjoy side mount diving. I started diving in that configuration. I think it was like 2021, and just kind of the natural progression of things. Well, I mean, I'll be honest. I took a trip to Mexico, and it was funny. I remember on the way down there. It's just how things progress. But on the way down there, I was telling my girlfriend uh yeah, I want to go dive in the cenotes, but I would never become cave certified. It's something I would never do. But I'll go dive in the cenotes because, as a open water diver, your open water certification, you can go and do some diving in the cenotes. You should have some really good buoyancy. They definitely bring a lot of people in there, and unfortunately, people that probably shouldn't be in there. But if you got good buoyancy and good trim, you could go and have these phenomenal dives. I went in, I was hooked. I was like, damn, this is the coolest thing I've ever seen. And as I was in, Mexico, of course, I see some side mount divers. Also in my head, I was like, that's the coolest thing I've ever seen. I want to try that. And and I know, there's the different also different sides of, diving is a tool. I 100% get that. Each configuration is a tool for the different type of things that you want to do. But at the same time, I'm like, well, why not get into side mount diving and just try it out? And I've really enjoyed it. I've, the dives that it has allowed me to do, I've really enjoyed it. I try to dive it as much as possible. Obviously, it's not the best for every situation, but to each their own. But yeah, I do enjoy diving side mount as much as possible, and that's actually why I ended up going with a side mount rebreather, which I've been told you could configure it. You can configure it in a back mount situation, or I mean, I guess it's like any rebreather. But yeah, so I did the side mount rebreather because I like diving side mount so much. So yes.
Yeah, cool. So are they what are the prices like for the side mount rebreathers?
We're going there, huh?
Oh,
So,
yeah, or do you not want to discuss it because your wife's in the next your girlfriend's in the next room?
no. Actually, that was I made the purchase and then I sent her the bill. I didn't tell her how much
Oh,
it was beforehand. No, so I think, depending on what unit you get into, I think no matter what, unless you find a good used unit, and unless, you have a lot of, if if you know a lot about rebreathers, then yeah, I would suggest going and looking at used units because you know what to look for. If you don't know what to look for, definitely get a lot of help, especially if it's um something new to you, because buying anything used is always a risk. But I definitely, as far as price, like, I don't think you're just for the unit, I don't think you're gonna get away I don't think you're gonna get under 5 grand for the unit, and that's gonna be like a base price. Like, realistically, you're looking up towards 10, and that might even be before training. So
mm.
it's, in that 5 to 10, range, and then on top of that, training, and then depending on what type of unit you're looking for, it might be more. Some units base price are 11, 12 right out the door, um and that's not even to mention the maintenance moving forward, the equipment that you need to keep the rebreather functional moving forward, sensors, sorb, uh, and depending on what type of unit it is, needs to go back to the factory for servicing, however many years. So it's kind of a pricey endeavor, but it's maybe even almost look at it like a car.
Well, when
It's a vehicle.
or call or anybody out there, call Greg Hilliard up and get him to calculate your gas for a dive that you want to do in a big wreck.
Exactly, and it's one of those things. I mean, I guess technically it is almost like a car. It's a vehicle to get you to where you want to go. So, but yeah, everybody has their hobbies. Everybody has their things that they spend money on. I knew uh uh like, I had coworkers that, every paycheck they would go and they would buy new tools, and tools aren't cheap. They would buy new tool. I mean, think of like NASCAR,
Yeah.
right? Some of those tools. I mean, the Snap-on guy comes driving by just handing over my paycheck, right? It's like a toolbox costs more than my monthly rent, So
Yeah, I mean, it's
one of
all
those things.
things.
But yeah, we all choose where to put our money, our hard-earned money, so, enjoy it, right?
Yeah. My other addiction's guitars, and it's not a cheap hobby either.
Oh, Lord. I I try I bought a guitar a while back, just a little acoustic. And when I was getting into it, one of my favorite things to do was I would just stroll into a guitar center, because you can pick up any
Yep.
guitar and just play it. And it's like, here I am playing like a $3,000 Martin that I would never be able to afford.
Oh,
Like, this
dude,
sounds
you
amazing.
come up here, plan an extra day. There's a music store in Toronto I'll take you to. there's literally like $40,000 acoustic guitars that you can pick up and play and
That's
try.
it's such a cool thing. And I would get all into it, like, oh yeah, I can't remember, is it the action or the strings sit
Yeah.
above the board? I'd be like, oh yeah, this has really nice action. I didn't know what I was talking about. I was like, that's really
Okay.
nice. This just because this this guitar is in the thousands of dollars, it sounds a lot better than this guitar that's in the hundreds of dollars, which obviously it does. You get what you pay for. But yeah, some of those instruments, man, they get up there in price.
Oh yeah, you could easily buy a rebreather with what you
Oh yeah, it's like a rebreather is probably cheap compared to some musical
so,
instruments out there.
some of them, yeah. Yeah, when you put it that way, Nick, hey, our hobby's maybe not as bad as we think.
That's what I mean. Yeah, and it's like I have friends that they have so much money into car parts and motorcycle parts, and we all figure out where we want to put our money, and at the end of the day, it's what makes us happy. It's our passion. It's our hobby. So I say go for it.
So where's your favorite place to dive out? Because you've been all over the place. So what's your favorite place to dive and why?
Lake Travis in Austin, Texas. No, 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 that's a total joke.
I was gonna say,
I
oh,
I do have a soft spot for Lake Travis in Austin, Texas, but um, there I it depends. It's such a hard question to ask or to answer because I guess it depends. Like I've had so many amazing moments in different areas, and when I did my cave training in Mexico, there was some absolutely amazing moments, some amazing dives. I really really enjoyed it, but also bring me to some tropical warm water somewhere in Indonesia, and I'm just a happy camper, right? I think if it depends. It's really tough these days because I started getting into overhead, and I went diving. I did some cave diving in Indonesia, which was an absolutely phenomenal area because not a lot of people get to go there. So you're hitting these caves where maybe a few hundred people have been so far, and so it's kind of cool when you're living in that moment. But I guess at the end of the day, I'll be honest, and I've said it multiple times is, give me 30 feet or 10 meters, and a reef, and I'm pretty happy, just going and finding some nudie branks or just, small little weird looking things in the reef, and I'm pretty happy. Just warm water, it's easy. It's easy. So it's, single tank, just warm water, diving, shore diving is I'm a pretty happy guy.
what? That's the one complaint I have about living here in the Great Lakes is shore diving because up where we are, it's all rocky. All the shore dives are rock. So me being with my leg, since I have no feeling in it and stuff, if I'm wearing a pair of wetsuit boots, like no support right at all. So I tend
Yeah.
to wear even when I go down south, I wear wetsuit over boots just to give me a bit more support in the ankles. And usually, I mean, if I get out in the water, you can ask any of the guys I dive with. I get out in the water maybe 10 feet sometimes, and if I get hit by a little bit wave like that, I'm down on my knees and I
Oh,
just pull myself out. I, I'm not graceful, but once I get in the water, I'm good. So
yeah, that's why boat diving is nice, right? Like, so yeah, I guess I mean, and it all depends too, right? So it's but yeah, I definitely love the boat diving, love the shore diving, but if it whatever is the easiest. What boots do you wear? Are like, have you tried any of the thicker sole boots?
I haven't
Have they helped out a
actually.
bit?
Jill Heiner told me to get a pair of Converse hiking boots. They make ones that are also waterproof. So I'm gonna try a
Yeah,
pair
yeah,
of
yeah.
those. The only problem is if I can get them my size, because I'm gonna need like a size 15. There.
Oh, okay, okay.
So
Um, there's some other boots that I got introduced to last year. They're called Ultimas, and they're like a marine tactical boot. So they actually have a little drain on them, thicker sole. They're made for tactical
Oh,
scenarios. And I haven't personally tried one on, but I know a lot of people that have. And once you kind of start doing the research, it seems like a lot of people like them. And obviously, with that comes with the bigger fin you might need or things like that. So, but yeah, that's another one to possibly try
yeah.
out.
Send me that on a link just so I have it there. That's
Yeah, yeah, for sure.
yeah. So what are your other types of favorite diving to do?
Whoa, everything, right? So I within in the last couple years, I get into overhead diving. Obviously, I like I was saying, I just went and got full cave certified in 2024. So very baby cave diver, and in 2000, it was 22 or 23. I went, and I think it was 2023. I did a advanced rec course, and I really really enjoyed that. Because there's obviously a couple different types of wreck diving you could go and enjoy outside of the wreck, and not penetrate into it. The course that I took, we penetrated into the wreck, and it was phenomenal. I really, really enjoyed it. Obviously, there's, a lot more dangers. I don't want to say a lot more danger. I guess it obviously depends on the wreck, right? But it was a really cool old wreck. I did it up in the Philippines, and was an absolutely amazing time, kind of introducing me into the overhead environments. And there's definitely different challenges going into that as opposed to a natural cave formation. Going into a wreck that's man-made, that's not designed to be underwater, is has its challenges. uh, but yeah, just different, overhead environment is a lot of fun. I think I'm gonna start eventually that, talking about that natural progression, get into trying to go a little bit deeper. I think that is the nice thing about the rebreather is it allows you to go deeper and not break the bank. Well, afterwards, not break the bank. Uh,
I'm finding that out.
yeah, yeah. So I definitely will venture deeper, but it's a slow progression. I'm never in a rush to get these things done. So, even when I got the rebreather, I set goals for myself, like, okay, so many hours on the unit before I start venturing into deeper waters. So many hours on the unit, so many hours in the cave before I try to merge those two together. So this is something that will probably happen over years, not months. And but yeah, just kind of seeing where to go. And every time I hear about something new, I'm always excited to, like, "Oh, that'd be kind of cool to go check that out." This side of diving out, back to the specialties. So many different things to do.
So, how is most of your cave diving been all done in Mexico?
Yes. Oh yeah. I spent a month out there and got trained, did my training to become full cave certified. I was there for about 6 weeks. It's actually where I got trained on the rebreather as well. So the bulk of my cave diving is definitely in Mexico. And then when I returned to Malaysia, there's definitely groups going around in Southeast Asia or in Asia in general that are finding new caves, exploring, guiding people. And there's outfit out in Indonesia, uh where I went diving, and that was really really cool just because, like I was saying, not many people have been out there. It's still kind of it's still very new, but there's a lot of exploring going on. So it was really exciting to go out there, and ended up meeting a great group of people. We just had a blast, and I mean, at the end of the day, that's kind of, we always, I say, or we talk about it a lot on the podcast, and I'm sure the actual time that you spend in the water is so little compared to outside of the water, right? So just chatting and having a good group of people to be with is literally makes the dive trip, and it was a phenomenal time. So a little bit in Indonesia, mostly in Mexico. But as I stated, I'm still a very, very baby cave diver. So a lot more to come.
So how long did it actually take you to get your cave cert? Because I'm looking at maybe doing some caverning cave.
Okay. So I went a couple years before. It's where I took my side mount course, and then I knew that I wanted to get into cave diving. So I did all my training in about a month. Depending on who you speak to, that might be a little bit fast. It might be too slow. But the biggest thing that my takeaway. So I did all my training in a month, but my biggest takeaway is I just wanted the license to learn, the
Yep.
certificate to learn, right? So I did my training and I had no dreams of saying, "Oh, I'm going to go into the deepest cave, the furthest cave." No, I'm like, "Okay, now I know how to correctly handle myself in an overhead environment. Let's just spend some time in the beginning part of the cave, even not necessarily the cavern zone, obviously into the cave, full cave, uh but it'll allow me to learn and pick up those things that you hear about that you don't really experience until you become certified, like distance penetration, or having a few complex navigations. And that starts to take a toll, and you read about these things, but until you actually experience it, you don't really know how to handle it. And that's why it's a slow progression, right? So I took me about a month to do all my training to get into the full cave certification. And now, like I said, it's very baby caves, nothing too crazy. Just build some time in the overhead, build some hours, build some confidence, build some experience. And that's kind of where I'm at right now.
Which is good because a lot of guys, I mean, like you said, you see a lot of guys, they go and they get a cert and then they like go absolutely crazy and do stuff way over their head. And then
Yeah.
they run into trouble. And I mean, basically, even since I was teaching scuba, I'm like, yeah, guys, like it's a license to kill yourself, basically, with your open water if you're
It
careful.
is. Oh, it really is. I mean, we're going into a foreign environment, a hostile environment, not built for humans. And we're pushing it. So that's why it's for me. I remember when I first signed, or when I reached out to the Robin is his name in Indonesia. When I reached out to him to say, "Hey, I'd like to come cave diving," I told him, I'm like, I'm a baby cave diver. I don't, give me your easiest caves. I just want to build some time in the overhead. I don't want to go do the craziest stuff. And that's what's kind of nice about Indonesia is, there's definitely some big caves that you could do some really crazy complex navigation, and then there's some very easy shallow stuff. And I was just basically like, "Hey, give me the easy shallow stuff." I'm still very new, because yeah, the last thing I want to do is get myself into a situation where you feel uncomfortable and now you're in it. You're in the overhead. There's no getting out of it until you reach your entry point, most of the time, but still, yeah, it's a very new thing for me. I'm in the beginning stages and I'm excited to see where it goes.
Yeah, cool. It's yeah, a lot of people don't take that like slow progression and gradually build their skills up and then or that we have one wreck up here, for instance, in Tomori. It's called the Arabia. It's a schooner, intact schooner. It's in like 90 feet of water. It's a gorgeous wreck. The bowsprit's hanging out and the chains are hanging off it and stuff like that. And there's every year there's deaths on it every single year. I mean, there was one family back in the 90s. The whole family died on the one dive. So
Ouch.
yeah,
Yeah,
and I mean,
there's
I,
or sorry.
I've gone night diving on that wreck before. Yes, which they don't do if you do on a charter, but back in the day when we used to come up, my buddy brought his boat up a couple of times, and we actually went out and did a night dive on it, right? So, I mean, I d I didn't see it that much risk in it when I did back in the day, I'm going to do it again this year. Well, maybe I'll go, oh, yeah, okay, maybe that's a lot harder. I mean, now that I'm getting older, you tend to slow down and you want to stack the odds in your favor a bit, especially when I've already got enough disabilities to deal with. Hey, everybody. Thanks for watching. Please remember to like, share, and subscribe. And by the way, we're also on your favorite podcast platforms now. We are on Amazon. We are on Spotify. We are on iHeartRadio. We are on Player FM and Podchaser. All of the descriptions are going to be down below, so make sure you check us out. Thanks. Have a great day. And remember, grab an adventure and live.
Yeah, it's and that's it's I don't want to say that's the scare. Well, I guess it is, a scary thing about scuba diving is when I was teaching, I used to tell people all the time, hey, you get your open water certification, you're certified to 60 feet or 18 meters, right? And that's where the limits of your certification are. People will be like, oh, well, what if I go deeper than that? I would tell them the scuba police is not going to come and write you a ticket, this and that. The biggest thing I would tell people is if you have insurance and you're diving outside of the limits of your certification, your insurance is voided. So that's something to think about. But yeah, you're not going to get a ticket, so the scuba police isn't going to come out, write you a ticket and reprimand you. But the thing is, you're opening yourself to so many more dangers, but people could still do it.
Oh,
That's
yeah.
the scary thing about it is you could get your open water certification and then tomorrow you could go dive to 150 feet. Obviously, I would never recommend that to anybody, but people can do it. And that's the scary thing about it is, so that's why you want to just let them know of, I hate to use the word dangers of the sport, but just the risks
Yeah.
of what could happen, right? And that's the thing that is very scary is once you get that certification, you can go crazy, and a lot of people do. And there's probably been amazing things that have been accomplished because people were pushing the limits, but
Can you
it's
afford
not a roll of the dice.
$100,000 chamber ride?
That's what so it's one of those things, and there's stories. That's the thing. As the years go by, like you're saying, there's more stories out there of the things that went wrong because unfortunately, we hear about the things that go right and we don't always hear about the things that go wrong. But as the years go by, there are more stories that we know, like, hey, we can use this as references to show you why you don't want to do these things. But, it's speaking of stories, I think there's a good movie about to come out. Have you seen that? It's got Woody Harrelson. Is it? I can't remember the name of it, but yeah. Sorry, just completely sidetracked right there. Sorry.
Yeah. So tell me, so how long were you an instructor for actively?
So on paper, I'm still
Relax.
active according to the agency, but as far as actively teaching, the last class I taught was in 2022, and I was basically an active instructor for about 2 years, working out of a shop in Austin, Texas, and I really, really enjoyed it. I absolutely love teaching, and I really, really hope to get back into it. The problem is it's as I've grown as a diver, I would like to teach a certain way, and I know that most running businesses don't really want to teach in that way, so it's kind of a
As
hard
you want to be more
transition.
thorough, and meanwhile, they're more concerned about pushing them through it.
Yeah, exactly. So it's, and not all shops are like
Oh,
that.
no.
So I don't want to generalize. But me being a foreigner out here, I could do private stuff, but then I'm kind of risking, immigration laws and this and that. So I would like to eventually find a shop that I would like to work for, but for me to come in and say, hey, I want to work for you, but I'm not going to take on the family of 6 from, wherever and run them through a 2-day course. I won't do that. I'll, take the group of 2 and put them through a 4 or 5 day course. And it's different for everybody, right? It doesn't necessarily have to be a 4 or 5 day course because all students are different. Everybody's ability is different. So, but yeah, I was an active instructor for about 2 years. I really, really enjoyed it, and it's something that I hope to get back into. Um, Either this year, next year, at some point. I keep saying that as the years go by. Next thing I know, it'll be 10 years down the road. I'd like to get back into it, just paying my agency fees, but haven't actively taught, so we'll see what happens.
That's yeah, that's the one funny thing about it is that with teaching that's amazed me since getting back into diving is how much more compressed they are with the courses and like get you in, get you out type thing. So
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, I got certified in nitrox in 1996 by Dick Ratowski. So
Okay.
godfather of nitrox, right? From
Yeah.
Noah. So he used to come up to the dive show in Canada, and yeah, that was actually, I think, the first year he started teaching it was that year up here. And I know that when he came up here, there were 6 of us instructors that all went and took the nitrox course. And ooh, did we take some heat for that?
It's back when it was voodoo
Oh
gas.
yeah, exactly. Voodoo gas. Yeah, they actually like our organization actually pulled us into a room and they're like, you guys can't be doing this. You guys can't be promoting this stuff. I'm like, well, it's safer.
But it's kind of like back the to the rebreather thing, right? It's safer, but it does come with more risks,
Yeah.
right? So it's one of those things that and that's such a tough thing I feel about the industry is like you're saying the courses are getting compressed, and it's like, oh, we need to get back to when scuba diving first came out, it was very militaristic, and these very long training thorough processes. To me, I'll say it, they were probably too long.
Oh yeah.
It's hard to find that happy medium, that balance of and that's why I do like to say every student is different. Somebody might get it in 4 days or even 3 days that somebody else might need 5 or 6 days. So it really depends on the student, because essentially you're like we're saying, you're giving them a license to go out and learn. Yes, you're certified, but it doesn't mean you should go and push it to the extreme lengths of what it could be pushed to. It's all about building up that experience level. And so it is kind of hard to find that happy medium, and that's why I like the idea of smaller classes and being able to really gear the course to your student ability
Yeah.
and go with their progression, or how they're progressing. It's like, oh, we can move a little bit faster because they're really getting the skills down. They're really they look comfortable in the water, where other people, they might need that little bit more time, right? So it's such a hard thing to find that balance.
So what okay, so since you're from the new era of instructor and I'm from the old era of instructor. Let's chat a bit more about this then.
Yeah.
So I think I think the other thing that surprised me the most and that I've been hearing a lot of is, I went and I did a refresher this year, and they don't even teach you dive tables anymore, even for the open water. Oh, using dive computer. So, what's your opinion on that one?
Okay, so this is something I'll probably get some heat for. Do I think that tables should be taught? Yes, I definitely think that they should be taught, but at the same time, I think that people should know the theory. I think that they should know the theory. I don't think it's something that they need to be drilled on, because at the end of the day, let's face it, that it goes back to that technology question, right? Get a computer. It's just the safer way to dive, right?
Oh,
And
yeah.
so when I was teaching, the agency I was teaching at, they didn't teach tables, or they would teach it, but it's basically they're more teaching computers. To me, people are most likely gonna finish their course. They're gonna go out and use a computer.
Yep.
I've been to dive outfits where they actually won't let you dive without a computer.
Oh yeah,
You know,
yeah.
so if you don't have one, they're gonna say, well, you need to rent one. You need to have this information on you. So I definitely think it's one of those things that should be talked about. But as far as somebody busting out tables underneath the water and calculating their dive because something went wrong, get a computer, and worst case, get a backup computer. And that's the thing about recreational diving, is if you're diving within the limits, it's safer. So you should be able to ascend at any point in time,
Yeah.
without a safety stop, right? So it's one of those things, like, just get a computer. And like I said, I'll probably catch some shit for saying this, but at the end of the day, I am a fan of technology. The dive computer is gonna keep you safer throughout your dives because it's calculating the depths that you've been to, the depths that you're going to. It's gonna tell you, hey, you stayed down too long, you need to make a stop. Why not get a computer? I definitely, like I said, I definitely think that tables should be talked about. Like, hey, this is how we use them. If you would like to know more, let's chat about it after class. But as far as going into a 2-day theory
Oh
of
yeah.
dive tables or a day theory, I don't think it's necessary.
I do agree with you on that part. The tables don't necessarily need to be drilled in as much because of the dive computers, especially if they're doing recreational stuff.
Yeah.
That part I will agree with. I guess the thing when it comes to that whole talking about the theory in the background of the stuff and decompression and all that stuff is that I'm amazed at how much people don't know about even like what can cause them to get bent.
Yeah. No, and
I
that's
I
true, right?
I had a party here. I was gonna have a barbecue at my house last summer with some of my dive buddies, right? We were planning to dive, and there's gonna be like 5 or 6 of them coming over. And I said to him, I said, "Yeah." I said, "Okay." I said, "The pool's open." I said, "You are not allowed to go. Nobody's allowed to use the hot tub. Off limits, right?" Because we were diving earlier in the day. And every single one of them were like, "Huh? Why? Why can't we go in the hot tub?" And I'm like, "Dude, you're not even supposed to take a hot shower after, right?" It was
You know,
it was
yeah.
it was hilarious when I had Dan Orr on because we were talking about the exact same thing, right? About like people don't
Yeah.
even know that, just by going to have a couple of beers and then go jump in the hot tub.
Yeah, and that's the thing too, is it goes back to the student, right? Like, so you have a group of 3 students in a course. You have one person that is going to do a lot of outside research
Oh
on
yeah.
their own time and figure out all the different things. You have the second student that's just like, hey, I want to learn this, but I don't need to know everything. I'm just going on I'm going to Cozumel next weekend for a wedding. I just want to be able to dive with my friends. And then you have the third person that's there because they're going with the second person, right?
Yeah.
And they're kind of forced to be there. And so it is, you can't expect everybody to know everything,
Oh
but
yeah.
yes, there are certain things that you should know. And it's hard too, because even me, I'm not the best student. Like, I definitely feel I need to work harder than other people to retain half of the knowledge because I'm not the best student. So
Never
I
me.
have to do a lot of that outside, work. And so for me, I'm just like, oh, okay, that's why when I really get into things, I'm like, okay, I'm going to start really diving into this, no pun intended, just because I really enjoy this. I want to learn more. But even if I didn't enjoy it and want to just learn the same amount, I need to put more work in. So that's why I feel like maybe that makes me a good student, because at the end of the day, I'm like, okay, I need to learn more. Um, and then another thing about the tables too that I wanted to mention is, if you're commercial diving and you're working on the bottom, yes, 100% know your tables. Why? Because if you look at the dive profile on tables, you're going to the bottom and it's saying, I stayed at 80 feet for however long, and then I'm going right up to the surface. No fun diver does that. Not one like who's going, maybe if you're a photographer, but no, most people, it's multi-level. They're going all over the place, and your computer is tracking all of that.
Yeah.
And so just use the computer. But to be like, hey, this table that says I stayed at 60 feet for 60 minutes, and then now it's going to tell me, and it puts me into this category. You already lost me, right? So it's like, so let me look at my nice sheer water and just go.
No,
Sorry.
I totally get it, man. I totally get your point, and I think not only that, a lot of it, maybe some of my attitude is because also when I remember when I became an instructor, I got certified NAUI first, so I was certified to 130 feet. And then I did that, did some commercial diving and stuff like that. So, and I also got into doing some technical diving as well, just towards the end before I got out of it. And I also belonged to a club that was ACUC, so the British uh, organization that did training like back in the day. I don't even know if they're still around or not. But and they were really strict military stuff. Like when I got certified just to join the club, I had to go to the pool for a whole bunch of weeks, even when I was an instructor. And then do all this other crazy stuff just so that I could dive with them, actually.
I mean, yeah, I get it. If you're going to be diving in that team aspect, it's good to know the protocols and stuff.
No, this was just a fun dive club, man. It's like these guys weren't even doing any serious stuff. It was like, and they would back in the day, they take you down to the bottom of the pool and they'd have guys like fight to get your mask, rip your mask off and rip your hose out of your, like all that stuff, right? Which I mean, seriously, how often have you ever had somebody try to attack you underwater, Nick?
Yeah. Sea Hunt with I can't remember his name.
Yeah, Lloyd Bridges.
It's a James Bond scenario underneath the water. So actually, I will say this though, and it's funny because in standards they should know how to do this because they should be able to teach this. But my thing is, if you are eventually going to go into the professional route, dive master, instructor, and I know that the easy answer for me to say is, well, you should know the tables if you're a professional. Most people don't, right? Like not most people. I take that comment back. There's a lot of instructors out there, depending on what agency. There's the majority, I'll say, of instructors who, if you went and asked them about tables,
They don't know.
probably wouldn't know how to explain it to you. They wouldn't know how to do that. I definitely think that if you're in a professional setting, you should 100% know how to explain, not just know the theory, but know how to explain. And I know on paper that's what it states, but in reality, most people probably couldn't go out there and explain tables to you. And it's one of those things too. I mean, I'm so far removed from it that it would be tough for me to explain it for you right now. I'm not gonna lie. Do I get the theory? 100%. And once I started looking at it, like, okay, this is how it goes. But just on the fly, I mean, shit, I can't even remember the last time I looked at a set of tables. I'll be
Oh, yeah.
honest with you. So it's one
I've
of those
been
things.
using the computer too because the same thing. I mean, I used to use DCIM dive tables and all that stuff. I could read them like the back of my hand, no problem. Now it's like, okay.
Yeah.
I need one of my buddies to like even sit down and go over this for me. No, okay. Somebody just told me about. Actually, I think it was Steve told me about this decompression planning software I can get for $100. So
Yeah, and that is really fun to play around with, and you can really plan a lot of different dives and kind of see the different routes and different things that you can go, and that's actually a fun thing. And like I said, for the person that's going to Cozumel for the wedding and they just want to do some fun diving, do they need that
no,
software? No. But if it's something that you want to start diving and or if let me take that back, if you want to start going further in your diving, that's great software because you could literally go on there and plan a lot of dives and not necessarily execute a lot of dives, but you could see the different scenarios and different calculations that will come up. So it's yeah, absolutely phenomenal. I think there's like 3 or 4 different ones. There's subsurface, there's multi-deco. There's a few really good ones out there, and depending on who you talk to, they'll tell you which one's the best.
Yeah. So when you're not doing all your podcasting here, like how much time are you spending in the water a week roughly? Because I always see you're out diving like where's that old content? That's just your stored content. I see.
That's just the stored content.
You're
the
making me
amazing
jealous every
abilities
time
of-
you're posting all this stuff because like, oh my God, he's there now. What?
No, it's the one of the amazing things about social media, right? The perception that I could give. No, so I will be honest, I don't dive as much as I would like to. So like it's funny. Moving to Southeast Asia, I was like, oh, I want to be diving so much more. The problem where I live in Southeast Asia, there is no diving. I literally can see the ocean from my porch, but nobody really goes diving out there.
Why?
If I was brave, I could. It's just really low visibility. It's not easy. The shore entry, it's just not easy to get into the water. I'd have to charter a boat. And at that point, I've tried to get people to charter a boat with me, but I get it because, I'm an hour plane ride away from some of the most beautiful diving in the world, right? In Southeast Asia. So I get why people don't want to go out and dive in the Malacca Strait. And is it the Malacca Strait? Yeah, I should know. But either way, it's not great diving. So when I'm doing any local diving, usually I'm going to a pool. I try to get to a pool at least once a month if I haven't been diving. Some days, I think I went dive. My last dive was in November, so I didn't do any diving in December. I'll taking a trip in this month in like 10 days to go. Hopefully I'll get some diving in. I'm not sure if I will. It's to a dive destination, but I'm going out there for different reasons.
Where are you going?
But I'm going to a place called Bira, Indonesia.
Oh, okay.
And yeah, it's the phenomenal diving, like some of the best that I've ever done.
Why would you not be going diving?
Well, I might be. Yeah, I might be. I want to check out the area and just check out a little bit more of a land. I'll say this: it's kind of a scouting mission. I'll say that for now. So as things unfold, I'll let you know more. Or we can talk about it offline. But so I'm headed out there. We'll possibly do some diving. I don't know if I will. But yeah, it's an amazing place for diving. And so realistically, I try to get into the water at least once a month. If I'm having a good month, it might be 20 or 30 times. So yeah, the posts, don't believe everything you see on social media, right? It's a lot of content out there, and I'm hoping my goal. I had a really, really phenomenal 2024. 2020. The end of 22 and most of 23, there was not a lot of diving as far as I'm concerned. I was working a lot. I moved out here for work, and just the job tied me up. I stopped working at that company in February of 24. And I was like, okay, I'm taking this year, and 24 was really good to me. I was able to get a lot of diving in. I was able to get a lot of training in. And I'm hoping that 2025 is going to go in that direction to where I could start diving more, hopefully get back into teaching and kind of get myself more involved back into the diving industry. We'll see what happens. And I know I'm involved with the podcast. That's kind of why I started the podcast, was because I'm like, hey, I can't dive as much as I would like to, but at least I could talk to divers, which is something that's really enjoyable and that I like to do.
Oh, that's the best part I love about doing this podcast so far. I mean, it's been all the cool people I've gotten to talk to over the last month. Well, Hey everybody, thanks for watching. Please remember to like, share, and subscribe. And by the way, We're also on your favorite podcast platforms now. We are on Amazon. We are on Spotify. We are on iHeartRadio. We are on Player FM and Podchaser. All of the descriptions are going to be down below, so make sure you check us out. Thanks. Have a great day. And remember, grab an adventure and live.
Yeah.
Getting ready to do this. So,
oh, it's such a fun thing. And, you know, everybody that you chat to, especially, I mean, you've told me some of the people that you've chatted with already. It's such a learning experience, even as a diver, just having a conversation with these people, right? Like you just to pick their brain and say, oh, well, you know, why do you like this? Why do you do this that way? It's a learning experience, and a source in a sense, it's almost just a different scenario of training.
well, it's funny because my first guest that I'm gonna have on when my podcast launches is John Chatterton. And then I got Gary Gentile coming on, and both those are two of the three guys that inspired me to get into diving. Was all from watching them on TV and hearing about their dives on the Andrea Doria.
Yeah, and that's what I mean. And just to be able to sit down and have a conversation, it's such a surreal moment. I mean, definitely on the podcast, there's been times where I'm like, I'm actually sitting down and chatting with you. This is a surreal moment because of the fact that I've known of you for so long. It's nice to be able to have a conversation, and that's the amazing thing I love about scuba diving. And this goes both ways, right? Let's face it, there are a lot of assholes in scuba diving. Sorry if I'm not allowed to swear, but there are. Let's face it, there's a lot of assholes, and sometimes I'm just like, you know, why? But on the opposite side of that coin, there are so many amazing people that are just friendly and willing to share their stories and sit down and chat with you and teach you. And that's what I love about it, is there's so many different characters in the sport that, you know, and that's just like any other part of life, right? There's going to be assholes, there's going to be amazing people. But to me, it's just like, yeah, there's no need to be an asshole, even in life. It's like we're scuba diving, we're having fun. You need to be a dick about it.
It's funny because when I started getting guests for my podcast, right? So I emailed Greg Hilliard first. He was the first one that came on actually the day after I listened to your podcast with him. I was like, okay, he's gonna be my first one. At least I relatively know Greg, right? From back in the day. This will be a cool interview. Maybe he'll do it for me. And then I went right from there and I emailed Jill Heiner. She was the second one that I accepted. And I told my wife and a couple other people, I say, yeah, I'm gonna try and get Jill Heiner. I said, if I'm gonna do this, might as well go big or go home. So
right, yeah.
And then Jill accepted. It was like, oh, so
yeah, she's super friendly.
Oh, yeah.
Absolutely friendly. And that's what I mean. There's just some people that you chat with that are these bigger than life personalities, or bigger than life on paper, the things that they've done, and they just sit down and have a conversation with you. And some of the most accomplished people that I've met on this on my podcast, just the most humble, absolutely wonderful people. And then on the opposite side of the coin, people that are trying to you know, make their roots or build this whatever, or just like, dude, why are you such a dick? Like it's just, but you know, I will say this about the podcast. I've met a lot of people. I mean, I wouldn't bring anybody on that I dislike, right? And there's nobody that I dislike. I'll say that right now. There's nobody that I look out there and I'm like, I don't like that person. I don't know a lot of people, but I'm always willing to sit down and have a conversation to get to know you, right? And it's funny because there's you have people on the podcast, and I really get to see a different side of them, because it's like, oh, I'm interviewing them and I get to chat with them, and I'm always excited to bring that to the, you know, public, essentially, because, you know, they might do something in their everyday life that they or they have this or people have this perception of them, and they come off one way, but when you sit down and have a conversation with somebody one-on-one, you really get a different side of them, and that's what I try to bring to the table, essentially.
Yeah, same here. That's what I want to accomplish with this, right? So
Yeah, no, and I'm excited to see how it turns out because, like I said, you have a pretty all-star lineup already, so
I
it's
tried.
pretty amazing. Yeah. Oh, you even try. You succeeded, man. You succeeded. You try. You're past trying. You already succeeded.
We're not gonna release too many of the details, people out there, because they're coming up. So, but yeah, he's right. I got really lucky on who I got coming on, so which I'm really excited about. So, one thing I want to ask you, since you're an instructor, what have you seen as an instructor as far as the benefits of scuba diving for people with disabilities? And I mean any type, PTSD, you name it.
So after, it depends. I think you need to get there, or some people have it, some people don't. But when people first start, a group of people, not a group of people, but some people, when they first start to get into diving, they might be very anxious. They might be like this overwhelming feeling. It becomes a little bit too much for them, and I always tell people, just keep at it. Once you get past that and you're in the water, it becomes like a meditative state. And I think that meditation, I think, is huge in any aspect of your life, even outside of the water or in. But I think when you're in the water, it can put you there quicker. And that was one of the biggest things that drew me to the sport. Was when I first started to get into diving, I was working in loud machine shops. I felt like everything was loud all the time. I'm driving down the road, there's traffic, there's, anywhere you go, there's all this noise. And then I would get under the water and it would put me in a peaceful state of mind. And I think that regardless of what you're dealing with in life, how stressful your situations are, if you can get in the water and just breathe, you know. And it's funny now that I'm in the silent world of rebreather diving, how much more quiet it gets, and how quieter it gets. But still, like, even open circuit, because you'll hear rebreather divers saying, "Oh, open circuit's so loud." But if you take the rebreather out of it, when you're just breathing and you're hearing those bubbles, it becomes like such a peaceful state of mind. And I think it might be some time before everybody gets there, but I think eventually, once you start diving a lot, you can reach that point of just being calm underwater and breathing and enjoying your environment. And obviously, it might be a little bit tougher in a low visibility inland lake somewhere, but if you could go to a nice, colorful coral reef and just see the fish swimming by and the beautiful, creatures living in the reef, to me, it can really give you and help you attain that peace of mind. Sorry to get real spiritual,
Oh
but
yeah, no,
that's what it is for me.
you're right. I mean, that is the one thing that I have. Actually, even my wife, and actually most of the people who spend a lot of time with me cannot believe is the difference in my mental state from pre diving last year compared to now. Right? And I'll admit it, it saved my life. I was living a pretty grim. I mean, I was doing cool stuff and stuff like that, but I wasn't happy. I wasn't really living, right? So, I mean, it's amazing that the benefits of it that way are just absolutely amazing for diving.
No, that's awesome to hear, man. That's absolutely amazing to hear. And that's why, like, honestly, kudos to you for sharing this story, for starting a podcast and getting those stories out there, because I truly believe, and I know some people are against this, that everybody should dive. Like, everybody should get under the water and obviously get trained properly, be safe, all that good stuff. But just go and breathe underwater and you will find such a zen, happy place. For me, anyways, and I can't speak for everybody, but for me, that's what it was. Is just a very peaceful, happy place, and I I definitely feel that could benefit a lot of different people. The mindfulness of it is, we could get all spiritual self-help, but it all starts up there,
Oh, yeah,
right?
yeah.
If you can make that at peace, then it could spiral into have other effects into your life. I don't know if spiral is the right word.
So have you heard much about Dive Heart by chance?
Yes, I have. And I was able to sit down and chat with a gentleman. He's very well known.
Jim Elliott?
Cannot remember his name. Sid something in Malaysia. He's very very well known in Southeast Asia, if not the world, for the work that he's doing. And I think it's an absolutely amazing organization. I want to at some point try to get involved and help. It involves me getting back into teaching, which I think would be an amazing. But the work that they're doing, I think, to be able to bring diving, to have my dream of having everybody dive, is absolutely wonderful, because they really are making it for people that have more challenges to get into the water, to be able to get into the water and enjoy the sport that we all love, right?
I actually am going to get my adaptive dive buddy cert at some point this year. I was actually supposed to do it a couple of weeks ago until the hand issue. So that
That's when I keep seeing the cast pop up every now and then.
luckily it's what time is it now? It's 9:24 here. So in less than in 12 about 14 hours it comes off.
Well, that's awesome. Congratulations. I'm
I
sure you're looking forward to
Huh,
that.
you have no idea, man. I, I did not realize how bad things were until you had to not have use of your thumb.
But no, that's awesome that you're doing that. That is absolutely amazing, because they are a great organization, and definitely more people need to get involved in the things that they're doing.
Well, you know what? I mean, it was a lady in Cozumel who was an adaptive diver. She was doing her first dive in like 25 years. They sat her down the boat. She had a degenerative bone disease. She had to actually be helped on with a walker. And the whole time that she was diving, I was watching her. And if it wasn't for her being on that charter boat, I probably wouldn't have tried diving again, honestly.
Oh,
And I mean, I want to get that certification because I made a promise after that when I started diving again this year. When I get that certification, I never want to be in a position, even if I'm on holidays or something like that at a resort or something, and there's somebody that wants to go dive. I do not want a dive instructor there to be short on a dive buddy just and that person can't dive.
yeah. No, that's amazing.
Right.
And honestly, I don't know if you had a chance to tell her, but you should, I don't know if you
I
could
have
reach out to her and let her
tried.
know.
I've been trying to find her. I actually wanted to get her on to interview her on the podcast. Nobody's been able to locate her.
Yeah, it's because I'm sure she would love to know, like, that she inspired you, because it's to know that you inspired somebody is such like a powerful feeling. And because inspiration comes from everywhere, right?
Oh, yeah.
It literally come from everywhere. And to know that you're the source of somebody's inspiration is such an amazing feeling.
Well, and not only that, seeing the joy that it brings on people's faces after they get back in the water like that when they're impaired is, to me, is priceless. There's nothing. Sorry. There's nothing that will replace that, because I totally understand what it's like, right? So
Yeah. No, that's amazing, man. That's absolutely
uh,
amazing that you want to share that.
so sorry about that.
No, you're good, man. You're absolutely good. It's like I said, it's inspiration, man. It's a powerful thing.
So who you got coming up on the podcast?
Oh, too many people. No, I'm trying to think. So let's see. I book a lot of interviews, so I was able to interview quite a few people this past month, which I'm very excited about. Next week, so I started doing this series called the Santee series, just kind of highlighting they as an organization, they do some amazing stuff. Their ambassadorship programs or their scholarships. Obviously they're very well known for their dry suits. So I've been kind of just going around and speaking to different people about that are basically affiliated or have something to do, not necessarily work for them, but they might use their products on a daily basis, or they just basically speaking to people that either use the products or are employed by the company or just something to do with the company. And I have 2 people coming out next week, which is next week, and that should be quite exciting. I've been chatting with a few different people in Malaysia, which I'm always super super pumped to bring people from Malaysia onto the podcast. And the reason I hate saying names because I'm so bad at pronouncing names, like it's I literally. So at the start of my podcast, and here's a little tip for you if you haven't done it, but at the start of my podcast, I always have everybody say, "Hey, can you just say your full name for the podcast?" Because in the beginning, I didn't do that, and then when I had to try to say somebody's name, I'm like, "Shit, I don't know how to say this person's name." So at least if I have it on recording, then I can practice it like 15 or 20 times. But yeah, just my goal always is to highlight different communities within the sport. That's why I like to get the roundtables together. But just there's so many, back to the specialties things. There's so many different avenues that you could travel in this sport that you could go down. And I like to speak to photographers. I just spoke to someone, or I just edited an episode where they became a search and rescue member of the sheriff's department. Um, people that are really into cave diving, editors of magazines. There's so many different. It's really a world that we live in, and it's a small world. But actually, I don't even know if it's a small world. I mean, it is a small world, but so I try to just highlight everybody in the sport, whether you're an open water diver and that's all you have, or you're the most accomplished manufacturer builder out there. It's nice to chat with everybody. So yes, I have some cool people coming up, so definitely stay tuned.
Awesome. Yeah, I'm basically doing the same thing. I mean, I've got you've heard my stellar, my stellar lineup that I got coming up. And then I'm also gonna definitely be profiling a lot of adaptive divers on here. And then hopefully this is gonna allow me to afford to be able to go to some more locations and help some other adaptive divers and do some more video with them and get them on as well, right? Because that's the one thing I really want to show is that, no matter how much these guys have to adapt their gear and get used to stuff, once they're in the water, they're good.
Yeah.
So, and it's awesome motivation for me because I mean, the guy I'm getting trained by side mount, he's got a paraplegic that's doing cave.
Oh,
right.
Amazing.
So it's like, amazing. All right, I got no excuses not to do that now.
That's true. Yeah, no, some people really, really have it a lot harder than us, and until we're able to see that, witness it, experience it, it's definitely we don't realize like how we have it.
Yeah,
and I don't even want to say good. That's the wrong way to put it. But how it's how we take for granted how easy it is for us.
Yeah, and I mean that's the one thing I think actually in my case, especially since I've been doing the podcast, is all the really cool people that are involved with adaptive divers that I've been getting to talk to and hear their stories. And I cannot wait to go adaptive dive buddy this year to dive with some of these guys. I've been like, okay, when? Let's go. Like All right.
Yeah, no, passing that inspiration along, man. It's a beautiful thing.
So, yeah. Well, Nick, thank you very much for being on the podcast today. It's been awesome talking to you. And
Oh man, thank you. This has been absolutely wonderful. It was great to chat, and I'm super excited to see where you're going to be, what the things that you're going to be doing in a year or 2 or 3.
well, I tell you, I'm pretty excited because I mean, today is only the 2nd of January, and I do not think I have ever had such a cool year lined up of stuff to do already come January 1st ever.
Awesome, man.
So 2025 is looking pretty amazing, and sounds like you got some really cool stuff going on too. So,
Yeah, no, I'm very excited. We will see, and stay tuned, social media or listen to the podcast.
all right. Well, thanks everybody for joining us today on the Deadfoot Diver podcast. And remember, like, subscribe, and donate. And you can also buy me a coffee in the link down below, and I will have the links to Nick's podcast stuff all up here as well for you. Have a great day. See you next time.